Have you ever felt that difference between being micromanaged and being truly led? It is a night and day experience, isn't it? One feels like you're being put in a box, and the other feels like you've been handed a compass and a map. Today, we're going to break down that exact distinction, that critical difference between management and leadership. We're going to explore why one contains and controls, while the other, well, it empowers and clarifies. Let's get into it.
Okay, so at its absolute core, the whole difference really just boils down to this. Management, that's a system designed to contain and control behavior, right? It sets up all the rules, all the processes to make sure things run predictably. Leadership, though, that's something different. It's all about empowering people by giving them clarity of purpose, clarity on priorities, and clarity on values. You could say one is about building fences, while the other is about lighting the way forward.
So, I want you to take a second and really think about your own situation, right now, at your job, in your team, maybe in your whole organization. Are you being managed, or are you actually being led? Just answering that question for yourself is the first step to really understanding the system that you're in, and maybe, just maybe, the system you're creating for other people. To really get a handle on this, we have to start with the problem. What's basically the default mode for so many organizations, and we're going to call it downstream management. It's a system that's pretty much always playing catch-up.
The key thing to see here is the timing. Downstream management only kicks in after a problem has already shown up. Think about it. It's the tough performance review after a bad quarter, or the brand new rule that gets created after someone makes a mistake. And look, while this kind of work might be necessary just to keep the wheels from falling off, it is fundamentally reactive. It's always late to the party.
And this, right here, is the ultimate cost of all that downstream control. See, you can create systems and rules that force people to comply, for sure. You can get them to check the boxes and follow the process, but what you can never, ever do is systemize ownership. Ownership is intrinsic. It has to come from within. You just can't manage someone into caring about their work. They have to be led there. All right, so if management is all downstream and reactive, then what's the alternative? This is where we make a big shift in our focus, moving away from the problem and toward the solution, the proactive and honestly powerful world of upstream leadership.
This is the real game changer. Upstream leadership doesn't sit around and wait for problems to pop up. It gets to work creating an environment, adjusting the conditions, so that positive behavior isn't just encouraged, it becomes the natural, easy, default way of doing things. It's all about preventing fires instead of just getting really good at putting them out.
And this is where you can see the huge difference in what each system prioritizes. Management, it's all about the what and the how. The systems, the rules, the metrics, containing risk. Leadership, on the other hand, is laser-focused on the why. It prioritizes meaning, the order of our values, what the real priorities are, and a deep sense of moral clarity. One manages the machine, the other inspires the people who are running it.
Now that all sounds great in theory, right? But how do leaders actually do this? How do you operate upstream? Well, it turns out there's a practical framework for it called FATE, and it stands for focus, authority, tribe, and emotion.
Let's kick things off with F, for focus. A manager's job, a lot of the time, is just to assign tasks from a never-ending list. But a leader does something so much more powerful. They grant their team permission to prioritize. They provide the clarity that's needed to look at 20 different tasks and know which one is the thing that truly matters right now. That's a huge shift from just being busy to being genuinely effective.
Next up, we've got A for authority, and this comes in two very different flavors. First, you've got title authority. That's the power bestowed on you by the org chart. But then there's functional authority, and that's something you have to earn through competence, trust, and respect. A manager leans on their title. A leader builds functional authority, and people follow them because they believe in their judgment, not just because of their position. Now for T, tribe. And this is all about creating psychological safety. I mean, think about it. Failure hardly ever starts with one single bad decision. It usually starts way earlier, with missing information. And why does that critical information go missing? Because people on the ground decide it's either unsafe or just plain pointless to speak the truth. A leader's number one job here is to lower that social risk.
And that leads us directly to the final pillar, E, for emotion. So how does a leader lower that social risk we just talked about? By consciously controlling the emotional tone. The emotion you project as a leader, whether it's curiosity and openness or defensiveness and anger, that directly determines whether crucial information lives and flows freely or if it dies in silence.
Okay, so we've walked through the downstream problem and the upstream solution. Now let's pull it all together and see what this looks like in the real world, because in the end, it all comes down to a fundamental choice.
This right here is your practical takeaway. A leader who's using that fate model is constantly, maybe even daily, asking these 4 questions. What competing commitments do we have? That's focus. Who actually has the authority to rank them? That's authority. What truth might feel a little unsafe to say out loud right now? That's tribe. And finally, what emotional tone am I personally setting? And that's emotion. This is what upstream work looks like in action.
And honestly, the results of these 2 different approaches couldn't be more clear. A really well-managed environment, it'll get you compliance. No doubt. People will follow the rules, they'll do what's asked of them. But a well-led environment, that creates something infinitely more valuable. It creates commitment. People don't just follow the plan, they are deeply invested in the mission. They bring their whole selves to work.
So we're going to end with this really powerful idea that just sums it all up perfectly. The very act of having to correct behavior is a signal that leadership was missing somewhere earlier up the line. The real work isn't about fixing problems after they happen. It's about creating the clarity and the safety that prevents them from ever happening in the first place. And that right there is the fundamental, irreplaceable work of a true leader.